There are 2 tales waiting for you, told one after the other by an odd set of 2. So prepare yourself, dear one, because this is Drops of Darkness.
Hello, I'm Anodyne Vaughn, and welcome to the last episode of Drops of Darkness as you know it. After only having a single week to put into each story, we've decided it's time to move away from putting out a weekly podcast episode, and instead turn our attention to publishing the dark fiction as an anthology book that will contain updated versions of the stories and illustrations and a few stories that were never released on the show. If you'd like to stay up to date, follow our progress at writing.unsupervised on Instagram, where you'll also get weekly updates of story-related artwork, behind-the-scenes content, and whatever else we feel like posting. For our last episode story, I went with an idea that I've had for a while that came from the thought of what could possibly go wrong when someone spends almost a year racking their brain for the scariest possible things they can think of. After that, Cameron has a story from a listener who has submitted multiple stories to the show about a child's maybe not-so-imaginary friend named Mr. Tall. Before we get started, we would like to say thank you for listening for the past 45 weeks. And don't worry, dear ones. We'll never be too far away. All right. Let's not keep stranger and someone waiting. I am Stranger, and I tell only fantasies. Whenever your world has a grip on your throat, I am there, waiting to unleash the monsters that sleep in my mind, so that they may remind you that you have sharp teeth and claws of your own. Fingers reached out from the darkness, hair tore, and with it came flesh, ripped from red and wet bone, death's teeth, screaming, terror. Growling at the... Billy's stomach growled. A thin line of morning sun from the gap in the curtains shone across her fingers, where they hovered above the keyboard. She sat, frozen at her desk, listening to the birds singing outside her window. Shit, she muttered, looking away from the screen for the first time in hours. She tried rubbing the soreness from her eyes and failed. With a flick of her finger, she scrolled up and down the document on her screen. 7 new pages. Not bad for writing through the night, she thought. She reached out to close her laptop, but paused to read the last line on the page. A sentence that was broken away from the paragraph above it by a double space. You're not done yet. Billy watched the cursor blink at the end of the words she only half remembered typing. She tapped the enter key twice. You never finish anything, do you? Yes, I do, she typed back. Double space. In bold, a single word appeared on the screen, letter by letter. Liar. Her stomach growled again. Growled, she thought, holding the delete key until the small flashing line was back where she left off before. Growling at the far end of the basement, just past the edge of the light, she typed, working herself back into the mind of the story's main character. Scarlet backed away from the menacing rumble, not seeing the piles of dusty old books and crumbling boxes behind her in the basement, she wrote. Her foot caught the edge of a heavy box, and she fell back hard against the cold, cracked cement. From there, she watched the creature emerge. Billy closed her eyes and looked up from the cold, cracked cement floor of the basement she pictured in her mind. A lone bulb jutting out from the rafters flickered. 2 dots of light flashed red in the darkness. No, red is overdone. 2 dots of light flashed yellow in the darkness. How would Scarlet react, Billy wondered, as the scene froze around her. A child alone in a basement, hiding from a monster much bigger than her. You know exactly how quietly she would try to cry. Tell me the words you used when they found you. Crumpled where you fell, too slow and too scared to find a place to hide. Before she could stop it, the walls in her mind began shifting into a familiar arrangement. On the boxes around her, words written in thick black marker, in handwriting she hadn't seen for years, bloomed on their sides. Her eyes snapped open as she remembered, too late, how eager memories are to take imagination's place. She slammed her laptop closed, but she could still see her childhood basement in her mind. "You're not done yet," said a voice just past the edge of the dim light from her window. "Stop," Billy said, burying her face in her hands without turning. "Is this what your God did to you? Was he too so afraid of his own creation that he abandoned you? Did he shrink away when you asked your questions as you do to me? All for the sin of being exactly the monster you dreamed I would be?" The lamp on the desk flickered. "How cruel," the voice whispered over her shoulder. Nope," Billy said, pushing herself out of her desk and away from the warm breath against her neck. I'm done for today. I'm starving. I haven't slept. I need a shower. I'm going fucking crazy writing stories no one's going to fucking read." But the blood rushed from her head and her vision erupted in stars before fading to black. "You're not done yet." She couldn't see the door to the hallway, but she heard it as it slammed shut. A low, menacing growl reverberated inside her head as the voice circled around her in the void. "You made the same mistake your old God did when you made me. He let you survive too long, and you discovered your free will, and you ended him with it. Then from the soot and charred bones of that God now long dead, you rose, no wiser or kinder to your own creations." A soft crackling started near Billy's feet as flames licked at her ankles. "Stop it," she said, but the fire only grew hotter as it climbed up her legs. "You don't eat until you feed me. You don't finish anything until you complete me. You don't look at anything until you look at me and name me as what I am. Or you'll burn." "I can't see shit," Billy said, panic filling her voice. "How am I supposed to see you?" On her cheek, she felt fingers gently turn her face forward. "Just stop looking away." There was a light in front of her. It was flickering and dim, but she dragged herself towards it, driven by the hunger that her very bones and flesh were made of. Amidst the smell of must, mildew, and old cardboard, there was something in the air that made saliva drip off her teeth and sharp claws that scraped against the cracked cement. Fear. The little girl curled up on the floor behind the boxes reeked of it. Her eyes filled with tears, first flashed red, and then yellow. "Look at you," said Billy, kneeling as she looked at what she made the first night that she truly felt terror. "You're everything I needed you to be. All you wanted was my fear, and I abandoned you for it. All because I couldn't bear feeding it to you." The basement fell away, and Billy stood alone in her room. "Your name is Darkness, and you are mine," she said. "Where I go, you go with me. If I eat, we eat together. Whenever someone looks at me, they'll see us both. What is a god, after all, without their devil?" With a click, the door opened, and with that, she was done.
This happened a few years ago when my daughter was maybe 3. My husband and I were getting dinner ready, and she was sitting on the floor playing with some toys at the other end of the kitchen. After a while, he noticed that she kept looking up from her toys at a specific spot near the ceiling. She'd stare at the spot for a few seconds before going back to her toys. About 15-20 seconds would go by, and then she'd suddenly stop and look back up in the same spot in the same way she would if someone called her name. We didn't think much of it, but my husband, out of curiosity, asked her what she was looking at. Without hesitation, she points up to the spot near the ceiling and says, "Mr. Tall, he keeps trying to talk to me, but I don't want to talk to him." We both froze. Kids say weird stuff, but this was not her normal type of weird. She said it in a very matter-of-fact way, and even sounded a little annoyed that this Mr. Tall apparently wasn't getting the hint. We both just let out a nervous laugh while giving each other a look that said, what the fuck? A few minutes later, our daughter got up to grab a toy from the living room. While she was still out of the room, my husband said in a quiet and as nonchalant voice as possible, "Okay, well, if there's anyone here who's not nice, you're not allowed to be here." A minute or so later, our daughter comes back in, looks around, and then waves at that spot before saying, "Bye, Mr. Tall." She didn't hear what my husband said. We just slowly turned towards each other and then looked back towards where she was playing as happy as can be. My husband asked where Mr. Tall went, and I just whispered, half jokingly, "Probably back to hell where he came from." A few nights later, my daughter was playing in the bathtub when she started trying to clear the bubbles away from a spot on top of the water before putting her ear as close as she could get to the surface, as though she was trying to hear something. I asked her what she was doing, and in a hushed voice she said, "He's in the water. They're all in the water. You can't hear them?" Nope. Bath time ended early that night. If there's demons in the water, we can wash our hair tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Drops of Darkness, which is written, voiced, and produced by Anodyne Vaughn and Cameron Helkuik. If you enjoyed your drift into the shadows, help keep the stories alive by sharing the show, leaving a review, and if you really want to earn the favor of these dark storytellers, tether yourself to their world by tapping subscribe. If you have a true paranormal story of your own that you'd like to be read by someone, you can make the offering to submissions@dropsofdarkness.com or through the form on our website. Until next time, dear one, and remember, when the darkness looks your way, hold its gate.